my panel today on building CSR leadership. May I call upon stage Miss Archika Srivastava, Head Corporate Communications and CSR for Hikal Limited. Dr. Lopamudra Priyadarshini, Assistant Vice President, Hindalco Industries Limited, Head of Community Relations and Sustainability for Odisha. Mr. Anurag Pratap, Corporate Social Responsibility Leader, Capgemini, India. Mr. Vijay Khati, GM Corporate Social Responsibility, ACC Limited. Mr. Vipin, Vijayan, Consultant CSR, ex Goldman Sachs and Catterpillar. And ladies and gentlemen, to raise the bar and take the moderation to the next level, we have the panel moderator, Mr. Ashwini Saxena, CEO, JSW Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a huge round of applause.
I am extremely delighted to have all of you here as the ones who are going to give the inputs. My job is easier just to ask questions to all of you. So leadership is about discovering the passion, persistence, imagination to get results, to be able to find the wow factor, and to be able to think the weird thoughts necessary to learn and thrive in a disruptive age. This was said by somebody as important as Tom Peters. And therefore it comes across as a very loaded kind of a requirement of being a leader, and more so especially in the space of CSR, because then there is a whole lot of other added elements which come into your scope of work as your mandate to be a leader. So today I would be requesting my panelists to put their thoughts together. Do we want to look at a leader as an individual which has its own personality traits, characteristics, style, approach? This is the way we personify a leader. Or do we look at a leader who's an individual who's very sensitive and is empathetic and therefore is also impacted in a significant manner by the external environment, and it's the external environment which shapes or brings out the leadership qualities of the leader? Or is it about giving it a context that leaders do evolve in a certain framing context? So from an institutional perspective, it's about the context, and also as an individual, it's about whether you create an impact or you get impacted. And the third part is that what all are the other dimensions of being a leader, especially in the CSR space? Is it about programs? Is it about activities? Or is it about being future thinking? There is a whole lot of research which says how intellectual capital is one of the key things for a CSR leader in the corporate world. So I would begin with each one of you. First of all, with Archika. Each one of you, very quick one-liner as to what do you see is leadership based on your current role and your experience so far. Archika.
Thanks Ashwini. And you said something very interesting about leadership, and there was this one line definition of leadership which was coming in my mind, which is like a leader is somebody who has followers, and especially in today's environment where it's all about followers. I think if I look back and there's nobody behind me, then I think I'm not a leader. And then, of course, one has to be visionary, to be a leader. So as a CSR leader, I feel that, a CSR leader is somebody who can put up a visionary strategy where ethical practices are part of the operations, where stakeholders come together. The person should be able to bring all the stakeholders and onboard them on that strategy. And then at the same time, it should be result-oriented measures which you put for a purpose-driven success.
Too much in one sentence.
Okay.
Over to you.
Commas.
Over to you, please.
So it's overall what I look at, I'll agree with Archika. So leadership is something that, I see as Sri Rajarshiji Birla. I see Rajarshiji Birla as an ethical leader whom we all follow, and she is pioneer in this CSR fraternity. This is the core of Aditya Birla Group that we belong to, and that's what we look and we try to follow that. So what she does is create other leaders. So for me, it's very important. Being a leader is not me, but I create for future more leaders.
So both of you touch upon followers, or rather creating more leaders. Okay.
But my point is different. I'll go with what Lopamudra said. Leader is not about creating more followers, but leader is someone who creates leaders. Create people who can be outspoken, who can think from their heart, and have empathy there in the core. Not someone who will just note saying that जो आपने कहा वही सत्य है, वही सच्चाई है. But someone who can question you, someone who can challenge you, someone who can make you do something different from what you were doing earlier. That's the leader that I call them as a leader.
So Anurag is touching upon empowerment as a theme.
Thank you, sir. Being a leader, he can understand the team. Then, because he is a mirror of the management, basically. Second thing, he can create the model that the outsiders can see. This is the model for that specifically the organization which he served their services. So, leader must having that much of capacity, that much capability, that the model for the others, and he can understand, he concern, and it will be impactful to the community as well as the organization.
So I think we have all spoken about leadership as a general characteristic. I would like to delve upon the CSR part of it, the CSR leadership, and what I feel is just a balance of idealism and pragmatism. And when you enter the boardroom, and I think that's what defines a CSR leader in the current scenario. So yeah.
So I got 3 or 4 key themes, I must say, and I think that's good food for to continue. A, leaders create followers. B, leaders create more leaders on the line. C, leaders actually empower. Am I understanding you correct, Anurag? So leaders empower. You said leaders who can be a role model and create impact. And you said leader, someone who balances between idealism and pragmatism. Okay, interesting. I think these are the key themes on which I would like to move further. If there are any other themes which the audience, whatever left, would like to ask us to focus upon that, please let me know. My task is to create this communication amongst all of us. But
just may I request, अगर आप हैं 10 मिनट बैठ जाओ यार. I think all of you are so busy there. But if we all are sitting here, just 10 minutes, give us some respect. Otherwise, लगता है कि नहीं अभी जाने की जरूरत तो चले भी जाए, कोई दिक्कत नहीं.
Good. So let me come back to you, Archika. I think you touched upon a point where you said that it's about becoming a role model and looking at how impact is going to be a significant thing. So Archika, this is my question to you. How do you actually balance between business imperatives and CSR imperatives? Is there a disconnect between the two? And if so, then how do you do that balancing act? So 3 questions in one.
So, I feel if, again, a leader is standing alone, a CSR leader, then there will always be gaps between business imperatives and he'll be the only person in the room talking about ethical practices. I think it has to be driven from the board, from the leadership. So I think alignment there at the beginning has to be done. The overall leadership, when they are onboarded into something, and if as an organization they feel that the business practices have to be ethical, there has to be ESG implementation and the right practices have to be across the board, including vendor onboarding to everything, then I think there shouldn't be much of a gap between the two. I mean, that's at least what my experience says.
Let me be a little more provocative. Can you narrate one instance where there was a disconnect, or I would say disharmony between the business perspective and the CSR perspective? And if as a leader, you or whosoever you remember in your mind could resolve that, I think that will open up a lot of dimensions as to what leadership in CSR is all about.
So, obviously when there are things being discussed, certain things as a CSR leader, what I feel would not be the top of mind things for, let's say, somebody who's running the business. I would think that, okay, this particular thing is the most important thing, because I feel it is. But if you don't back it up with appropriate business cases or some impact that there could be some implication of it, right? So we need to kind of bring that on table to convince them and at least onboard them on the thought process. It might take time, it's not something I've said it today and people will be onboarded on the very first day. It does take time, but I think one has to be patient about it and then keep on speaking about it. And I also feel it's very important to bring a culture, and it's just not me talking. When you bring your entire workforce into things which are, you feel, for example, no use of plastic to everything, let's say discontinue these plastic bottles, don't have them in office at all. Those little things, when it becomes part of your culture, you're not the only person talking about it. Then everybody starts looking at it and they see the impact.
Fair enough. So I think to sum it up, what you're saying is reaching out to a range of stakeholders and aligning them with yourselves. Perhaps that's one answer. Lopamudra, I'll come to you now. You represent Hindalco, and you are a core sector company right there in Odisha and so many of those hinterlands. And so you have a much wider range of stakeholders to look after and who would be equally complex to deal with. And therefore, a lot of opportunity for leadership to be demonstrated. So, would you like to touch upon something of that?
Yeah, absolutely correct, Ashwin. That Odisha, the Hindalco is mostly mining and mineral industry, as JSW is. So there is a lot of stakeholders. So I was just sitting here and thinking to tell you this story, that leadership is not only in business. It's also in our external stakeholders that we deal with, and for us, it's very, very crucial. A company like ours, and they are very diverse stakeholders. They are not the normal stakeholders that we see in the urban setup. Demonstrating such kind of leadership there, and also creating leadership among them, is a great challenge. But it is possible and it is being done. So, out of my 29 years of experience nationally, internationally, I think that the challenging role I have ever played was in that segment for the last 5 years, where being a leader, I was constantly learning new things. I have unlearned and relearned things there. Thus, my skill as a leader and going ahead, how I can create leaders in those stakeholders were successful for us and for the organization that I work for.
Wonderful. So, I think Lopamudra brought up a very important aspect of empowerment of not just your stakeholders internally, but externally as well, to make sure that they align and finding out leadership opportunities there, which is I think related to how you organize the community to be a sane voice with which you can work very closely. Sir, now I'll come to you. She is touching upon how external stakeholders also can provide you opportunities of nurturing leadership there. So that's another aspect of leadership. Any element across your workspace which we have come across, an example which says this is how a leader in the CSR space could have performed or has performed?
Yeah, exactly. Because if the leader is good, is impactful now, so he can handle the various stakeholders very smoothly, because we are in the process industries specifically. We are operating mining, we are producing the cement or something. So we are facing daily the different type of the stakeholders. So if you have that much of guts to convince them, that capacity the leader is having, then your business will not suffer. First thing, if there is a gap between the leader, between the management and the leader, then definitely the business will suffer. Second thing, this is the social investment finally, and we are answerable to the management. If the leader is having that much of capacity to understand the concept of the social investment and the management concern, that definitely both the sides, vice versa again. it will impact to the business, positive, negative, both the sides. And it will be impact to the society, positive and negative. If the leader is good, if he's having that much of capacity and this all the concern, if the leader is having, then definitely society will support you. That means it will goes to the positive impact on the business to the industry.
Interesting. So you're pinning a lot of impact just on the leader. So I'll come to you for this next follow-up question. That we just agreed upon that a leader also has to create followers, a leader has to also empower down the line. In your perspective, with the kind of work that you're looking after, how does this leadership trait gets passed on down the line? Because when we say leader, we are not talking about one single individual, right? I mean, it's leadership has to transcend across the entire team, which works in the CSR space in this particular context. And that's the ambassador that you have, the last mile, the foot soldier as we call it. So according to you, what is the magic of translating or transcending the leadership traits or qualities across the entire team? And if you think it is necessary or not, I mean, it's your personal
Of course, I think Ashwini sir, you've given me a great segue right now. I'm sitting with one of my coaches, with whom I started my field journey, right? We were running around Googles in Chandrapur, and that's how I started my field work. And Pratap sir is sitting in front of me, who was leading. I think is this better? Okay. So basically what I was saying was, what I started my journey, one of my coaches and my mentor, Pratap sir, is sitting in front of me. And the leadership, what they have done is not only teach me what the field work looks like, what the running around looks like, how the program implementation plan looks like, but how to also deal with the corporate element of it, how to also deal with the board element of it, how to also deal with the not so development sector element of it. So that's something I think which comes from understanding, because they would have also gone through, they would have also had those leaders. So I think it's organic in the natural leaders who they are, the magnanimous leaders that they are right now. And that's how I also aspire to be. If I do have a junior who's coming in and not wanting to really go to, let's say, a Kuju or Urmaji, because the office looks better for him or her to create a program preparation plan, I would send that person there to make sure that they know the field is also very important as much as the corporate is. So I think you just gave me a good segue to just praise the leaders also.
I'll come back to you, Anurag, because you come from the technology sector, and I think the kind of work that Capgemini has done is pioneering work for youth empowerment and skills. When you're pinning too much of work on the leader to make sure that the leadership traits, leadership qualities are transcended down the line and everybody is like a leader in its own capacity, I think technology, systems, processes do play a very significant role in that. So how do you see, this is one space where technology can play a significant role? Because of course you can't be creating leaders through technology, but maybe you can facilitate, dissemination of leadership abilities. How would you like to respond to that?
This is in India, which is where you have more than 50% of your population is under the age of 25. This becomes hugely important and pertinent that you give them a sense of larger hope and aspiration and empathy for a better world. Because if you don't work on giving them a sense of hope, a sense of optimism there, then this demographic dividend that we all talk about will turn into demographic nuisance for us. It will lead to a huge amount of unrest there. And you can't do through physical manner. You can't reach out to, I'll say, the kind of population that we all need to deal with through a physical manner. And that's where digital becomes very important there. We are in a number of ways. I'm not going to name organizations because this is not the place to do that. But there are national level processes that we are doing to ensure that youth level content, youth level requirement, their aspiration, how you direct those aspiration to through a very fruitful processes there, and allow them to raise their voice and articulate their voices and concerns there in a meaningful manner. and then capture it and then take action around that particular thing. And that's what we are doing through digital. We kept that's a larger coalition. Number of corporates are involved in it. UN is involved in it, and the target is to reach out to 100 million youth by 2025. Fairly ambitious, but in India, if you don't bring in these kind of numbers there, and if you do not take digital to reach out there, to provide them with hope in the larger space, create a more empathy-oriented constituency, we won't be able to bring the change that we all are seeking there.
Thanks, Anurag. I'll come back to you, Archika. I was just checking your company. Hikal is into, if I understand, Hikal is the right pronunciation?
Hikal.
Hikal, okay, Hikal. So Hikal is into special pharmaceuticals, it's into crop protection things. Some of these things would have a direct connection with CSR kind of initiatives. Some of them will not. So leadership, especially CSR leadership, is also about how your product or service portfolio also aligns itself well with your CSR objectives. Can you throw some light on that from your company's perspective?
Yeah. So, I would not see it as a direct impact on the product and services, because as you rightly said that, we are into pharmaceutical space and crop protection, so that anyways become somewhere close to, which is doing good to the society is what I would like to believe. But yes, when it comes to procuring the right vendors, working with vendors who have ethical practices, or, because we have an R&D division in Pune, which is about innovations. So, innovations which can actually bring impact on ground, creating those kind of products. So when you bring all of those elements together, yes, to a certain extent, it does, affect, the overall product and the services that the company is developing. So as I earlier also said, it has to be, the top management has to be onboarded into the idea of what you kind of see as a overall impact, what company is trying to bring, what positive change are we trying to bring. And once everybody is onboarded, then I think it's actually a cakewalk there.
Thank you so much. I'll open up the floor for more questions because I can see the restlessness around.
Thanks, Ashwin, giving an opportunity. So, most of you are the top leaders in India, leading the corporate, social, the leadership and creating the impacts. So, most of the time, you as a leader has some vision or has some dreams to achieve that as Anurag said, that creating the empathy among the young population in India as a demographic dividend. So these are sometimes the leadership of top management that you represent. So how you able to convince them, or how this syncing or building the synergies among the leadership, how that happens? So do you find challenges in the convincing them? So maybe in the simple way.
So Ashwini, so see, challenges are everywhere. So that to leadership, when we talk about organizational leadership, when they top to bottom all aligned, empowering each layer to take up. There is one leadership which is called a social leadership. So one has to be passionate enough to do that development, because we are CSR, mostly working on field. We are trying to develop the ecosystem in India, making India a developed nation. That's our vision as a CSR leaders, because we are working in the in a social arena where socially we wanted, socio-economically we wanted to grow. So that is different leadership. Challenges are in both. And Anurag disagrees. He will. But the point is, as a leader, how you are overcoming it at every time, because life is all about challenges, and how do you overcome, because that's bring new innovation to that field. That brings new ideas. If there is no challenges, we are dead. We don't have. So yeah, Anurag has said.
No, one is that I don't believe in when people say that मैं social का हूँ, बोला मैं social का नहीं हूँ. Leader is leader. Let's face it. I don't categorize them, because the moment I say that I come from social side ka leadership, then I am requesting you to treat me differently. I am in this particular field as a leader. There I am a leader there. And second is that a leader is dented. मतलब all side you'll find that he'll have bruises all around, he'll have wounds there, he'll have or she'll have he'll have a huge amount of hurt deep inside. But the leader is the guy a person who is, in spite of all these, will have a vision there to say that let's take everyone forward there. Because none of us who's sitting here or people who are sitting there will say that for me it was a checkered life, nothing bad happened, no challenges happened. We have gone through all kinds of turmoil and all kinds of struggle there. And my pet belief these days is that सबके अपने अपने राम हैं और सबकी अपनी अपनी महाभारत है. Everyone is going through their own struggle there, and in spite of those, if you come as a victor outside, you become a leader there. Otherwise, you are like दुनिया में सेंसस में नंबर बढ़ाने के लिए काफी लोग होते हैं, तो आप हो.
So anyways, let me not take any further questions. Anurag, you actually touched upon a very important aspect, which was actually going to be my last question, and good that you will get another opportunity to answer it. And the question is that a leader is also supposed to be a visionary. And just now we had a panel where we were talking about emerging trends in CSR. So, in terms of leadership in CSR, what is it that you see? Just one liner, please. Each one of you. Where do you see leadership in CSR going in the future? And what are the challenges, if you may like to touch upon?
If you ask me, then one thing which I'll say as a CSR leader, we all need to promote celebrating failures, which these days we don't do. We are so sucked up with the whole idea that we need to be successful all the time that we start hiding our failures. And there is a need to celebrate failure. Sometime I have this aspiration that I'll run an event like this and I'll celebrate excellence in failures.
Wonderful.
Somewhere.
So celebration of failures. Archika, one liner.
Okay, this has taken the conversation at a different level altogether, but I was going to say
That's what
looking
leadership
at the
is all
climate,
about.
I think climate change, doing something in that area, I think we should all step up and do something which is the need of the hour. So that's at least for me, I would say.
Climate change. Lopamudra.
Yeah, for me, I always have, vision of creating more leadership within the organization, internal stakeholders as well external. Because the more we create leaders holistically, then I think we'll move ahead.
Yes. Just continuation with the Anurag sir. Leader will be the one thing, he can celebrate the success as well as digest the failure.
I think moving forward, we talk about the future and the trends, right? So I'm looking at a more integrated form of CSR being discussed, wherein we are talking about CSR not as a silo. And I think we were talking about earlier where, it's a subset of S in the ESG right, currently, as we discussed. But how do we talk about CSR as a part of business is something I see, future being.
Wonderful. I think that's very nicely summed up. So, we will close this panel with this last line, maybe if I may be allowed to say, that CSR leadership is about envisioning the future challenges. It is about dissecting the failures that we have come across, and it's also about celebrating some of those successes that we have been able to achieve. Thank you so much.
I would like to call upon Mr. Ketan Deshpande, Chairman, Fuel Group of Institutions, to present a token of memento for this August panel.